we asked them, there's a sort of thing like the concept called search time, which I think they kind of smuggled in to the discourse about marijuana from the heroin world. And the theory in the heroin world was that if we can restrict sources and make it harder for them to make the buy, that this will somehow be a good thing. The logic of that never really struck me as particularly sensible, but nonetheless, how much time would it take you to get a gram of cannabis? Now, in Amsterdam, 94% could get it within half an hour. Now, as I said, about 250 cannabis coffee shops in Amsterdam. It's a very compact city. The others who couldn't get it within a half an hour probably live fairly far away. In San Francisco, it's more of a mixed bag. And so you do see significant increase in so-called search times under a criminalization regime. But still, 61% of San Francisco residents could get it within half a day. So a few hours, basically. So you could say, if you were a drug lawyer, well, look what we've done to search times. Now, that may matter to a desperate heroin addict, but I'm not so sure that a few hours difference matters much to your average cannabis user. So, for all the costs involved, social, financial, human, and so forth, I'm not sure they're getting any bang for their buck, even by this measure. Now, I want to tell you briefly to close, I want to echo some of the things that Ryan King reported. It's a paper I've done with Harry Levine. We've worked with John Getman. I don't know if John's here, but he's done some fabulous work with these large data sets on arrests. And I want to give you just a few points from this work. This is a display of incarceration rates, and if you'll notice, at 750 up there at the top, we have a higher arrest rate than any other country in the world, higher than South Africa under apartheid, higher than under the former Soviet Union and its gulags, higher than such countries as Singapore and Saudi Arabia. This is not a list that you want to be on the top of, I wouldn't think. One of the reasons for that is that federal drug expenditures have gone up tenfold in about a generation. When Ronald Reagan entered office in 1981, it was just under $2 billion, and now it's well over $20 billion. That's one of the reasons why you see this massive increase. Drug arrests are the largest single category of drug offenses, the largest single category of arrests, dwarfing violent crime, and larger even than property crime. Now this one may interest you because, as you can see on the left-hand side here, the early 1970s, when Richard Nixon really got the drug war started in a big way, arrests started to increase very sharply. But then they caught him being a major felon, and he's impeached. And then it oddly, after that, levels off even during the Reagan and Bush years, Bush the first. Going down slightly, trending down in the 1980s. And then at the start of the Clinton administration, a Democrat, a liberal in some respects, you see a startling, skyrocketing increase in marijuana arrests that continue, as Ryan said, to increase. There's a lot of speculation about why that was so. But my personal favorite is that this is when the crack market started to settle down and crack arrests were reduced. And so something had to be done with all this law enforcement machinery out there, kind of supply side argument. So, in effect, what you had is a massive increase in marijuana arrests, which formed what might be understood as a kind of head start for prison. Because they're really focusing on the same neighborhoods and the same folks, disproportionately people of color, which I get to. The next slide. Who are these 20 million? This was put together by Harry Levine and John Getman. The black bar on these charts, this is by 20-some major counties in the United States. The percentage of the population that's black is the black bar going across, and the red bar is the percent of marijuana possession arrests who are black. And what you can see is that in every city across the country, north and south and east and west, whether they make a massive number of marijuana arrests as they do in Atlanta, Baltimore, in Cleveland, or not so many as in Denver and LA, down at the bottom, the racial disparity is gaping in every single case. These are just marijuana arrests. The picture looks similar for other drug arrests. Massive racial disparity. Is that because black people use marijuana or other drugs more than white people? No. It can't be explained in terms of prevalence of drug use, even if you bought all the premises that underlie that. Because it turns out that African Americans and Latinos use somewhat less than white people. So it's not about prevalence, it's about where you look. What's really, 2 minutes, okay. What's really going on you can see in this chart. This was a study the ACLU did. It's Maryland State Police data they collected, and it's a little bit of a complicated chart. But starting with white people on the left set of bars, 76% of the drivers who were observed on I-95 were white. 74% of the people who made some violation while they were being observed were white. But only 19% of the people who were actually stopped by the Maryland State Police were white. We move over one set of columns, we see black people. There are 17% of the drivers observed, about the same proportion of the number of violators observed, but 4 times as many of a higher rate of the people who were actually stopped, and similar was the case for other minorities. So this is about racist police practices. There's no other way to explain it, and this was the subject of a long-running lawsuit, which ultimately the ACLU won. So what you see, to close, is that drug laws, including marijuana laws, are applied in a racist manner. They're a tool of social control of the so-called underclass. Well, black people represent 12% of the population, about the same proportion of drug users, 3 times that many arrestees, and again a disproportionate increase in who's convicted, and again a disproportionate increase in who actually goes to prison. And if you did anything for the length of sentence, you'd see, again, racial disproportion. So I'll end by just saying that drug law reformers like us need allies, and we should be reaching out as often as possible to the African American community because they're suffering the brunt of the drug war. Thank you very much.